this evening with the roll call. Vice Chair Oliver.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Ahmed. Trustee Amos.
Hello, everybody.
Trustee Baxter.
Good evening.
Trustee Bryden.
Hello.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you, I am here.
Trustee Gray.
Yes.
Trustee Rocha.
Here.
And Trustee Shuttleworth.
Yes, I am here.
Trustee Zhang.
Good evening.
Student Trustee Ho.
Good evening.
And Student Trustee Ochu.
Good evening.
Director Ennis, would you please let us know who is in attendance with staff this evening?
Thanks, Chair Collard. Good evening, everyone. We have a full complement of staff here this evening to support tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much. Tonight, Student Trustee Ho will be honoring the land.
We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which the HSB is situated is on the ancestral, treaty, and tidal lands of the Anishinaabeg Ojibwe Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land.
Thank you, Student Trustee Ho. Earlier today, we learned of the passing of Justice Murray Sinclair, who was very instrumental in the creation of the Truth and Reconciliation Report that came out in 2015. And I would like us to have a moment of silence to signify his passing. Thank you for that. We are now up to item 1.3, approval of the agenda. Trustee Bryden, would you make a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I would.
Trustee Zhang, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, please.
Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is...
I put my hand up. I object.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes.
Can you put yourself on the list, please? Go ahead.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, there's an item in the multi-year strategic plan adoption. It is listed under an action item for this evening, but according to our bylaws, the multi-year plan has to make 2 appearances before the board before we can vote on it. I do realize that we received a draft of it in October, but that was a working draft and changes, revisions were made to it. So what we're seeing tonight is not the same thing we saw in October. And I think that for public confidence and transparency, what the public is seeing tonight is different than what they saw in October. And for those reasons, I would like to move that item into section 4.2, which is for future action. And I do understand we're having a meeting in 2 weeks' time, so we could vote on it in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your objection and your rationale for the objection. All of our documents are in draft format until they are approved by the board, and many of our documents, the draft has changed from the time they go to committee as a whole to when they are approved at the board. This has been in the public eye for 7 months. Trustees have had hands on it for 7 months, and I do not see a reason to pull this from the agenda. If there are no other speakers, I will call the question. Trustee Baker. I'm so sorry, Baxter.
Close enough. Thank you. Through the chair to the chair. I would like to support Trustee Rocha's suggestion of moving this to 4.2, not only for the reasons that she articulated, but also I have heard from participants in the consultation process that they were not aware that there was a draft available to review. And being in the center of it, I had to step back for a moment and realize that it did come to public consumption for the first time at Committee of the Whole. And as far as I've been told from the participants in the consultation process, that they were not informed that there was a draft ready to review. And so the people I've spoken to expressed a desire to have a little bit more time to review it and potentially provide some feedback. So I would be in favor of simply just delaying for a couple of weeks to provide that opportunity. Thank you.
Director Ennis, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you. And through the chair, I believe that as a board, we have been waiting for a long time to get this multi-year strategic plan underway. I would not be in favor of any further delay. I believe that the system is eager, anxious, and waiting for us to approve this plan so that we can continue to do the good work.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So, listening to what both Trustee Baxter and Trustee Rocha have said, I think that this being such an important piece of our role as trustees, 2 weeks is 2 weeks. And I think for us to have that confidence of the public behind it, from what Trustee Baxter is saying, not recognizing that it was there from Committee of the Whole, delaying it 2 weeks for me doesn't seem that consequential, that it will make that large of a difference. So I would be in support of Trustee Rocha's, I don't know if it's an act, I don't know what it is, motion? Is it a motion? To move it on the agenda. Thank you. And delay it for 2 weeks.
Okay, in response to that, I will just add that all of our documents change when they go from Committee of the Whole to the board. They are all made public on our board's website, and we never delay any of the other documents. Trustee Rocha.
So through you, Chair, I am aware that all documents are always in draft form, but when there are enough changes to warrant another discussion, a new revision is a new way to look at it. My other concern is at Committee of the Whole, when the MYP was presented, it did say the final draft will be presented at the board meeting on November 5th. So if this is the final draft, technically it's its first appearance at the board. So going back to our bylaws, it would require two appearances. And I would also argue you could write an entire document one day and completely rewrite it for its other appearance. You would still need to weigh the new version on its new merits, not based on the previous version. So what we have today is a different version than what we saw in October. And I think, to do to service the public, and our role, to what Trustee Shuttleworth said, this is a significant piece for a trustee. We want to get it right. And 2 weeks to let the public know it's out there and that we value their feedback, I don't think it's much to ask, and we won't be missing any deadlines by adhering to our own bylaws.
Could I ask Dr. Biseglia, do you happen to know how many people were consulted in the creation of this document, or is that a question for the director?
I can answer that question. Just to establish that this timeline has been established for several months, including tonight's presentation. And so it is little bit surprising to hear this conversation on the last hour when we've had months to reflect on this. There were over 3,000 individuals that were consulted on this, over 1,800 parents and caregivers and guardians, over 450 students, over 650 teachers, over 40 plus community groups, and many more. We have touch points with thousands of people. And so this has been well established, and I think the time is should be honored as we've established it.
Thank you. Trustees are only allowed to speak twice to any action item. Trustee Rocha, so I'm going to call the question.
Sorry, this item is for decision to approve the agenda item.
This is an action item.
And you can speak
You can
three
speak
times.
twice.
3 times to a decision item.
Okay, go ahead.
So through the chair, I understand that we have a timeline, but as the trustees, we also have to adhere to our bylaws. If we don't want to adhere to our bylaws, then I would suggest we revise our bylaws, but it's stipulated in there that if the MYP comes to the board, it needs to be seen twice. And as far as I'm concerned, this revision, like this draft, this is the first time I'm seeing this version of this draft. There were changes made since October, and that's my
Manager
argument.
Khan, would you care as our parliamentarian to remark on that?
So if I could provide some clarity with respect to what is enclosed in our bylaw. Appendix C of the bylaw talks about reports requiring 2 presentations. The MYP is number 6 listed in that appendix, and it says that reports shall be presented at the committee of the whole or at a board meeting prior to being presented for decision. Wherever possible, the preference is to have reports appear at committee of the whole first. So in terms of compliance with the governance bylaw, I do see that the presentation today and it being up for decision is compliant with the bylaw.
Thank you. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. I wonder if someone from the committee could talk to us about how many changes were made to the MYP from the time that we saw it last at Committee of the Whole to tonight. I don't think there was any huge material changes, but I wonder if someone who was at the drawing board could comment, please.
I'm not seeing anyone put their hand up, so I'll just comment and say that all of the changes that were made were changes that were discussed at Committee of the Whole, which is video recorded and on our website. But I'm looking to the other trustee members of the committee to see if they care to make a comment, because I was not the only trustee on that committee. Go ahead, Vice Chair Oliver.
Okay, thank you. So as you recall, we had a thorough discussion at Committee of the Whole, and trustees had a number of opportunities to provide their feedback. All of that feedback was reviewed by the steering committee on several occasions. Changes were made where appropriate, and this version does not have substantial changes. I can remark on the fact that in the attachment that you have, the opening paragraph has a little bit more detail to fully explain the commitments and how they are overlapping, and to create a cohesive approach to fulfilling the objectives of the multi-year plan. There were some changes with the pictures in the file, and the Indigenous Education Department was consulted on the proper wording of under the heading of what it means for this commitment, to make sure that we used the proper terminology and the spirit of, with which this commitment is intended to proceed forward. And I think that is, those are all the changes resulting from the last draft that you would have seen.
Trustee Baxter. Oh, I'm sorry. First time speaker, Trustee Bryden.
Go ahead, Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, there was a page removed from the MYP, and thank you to Chair Collard for reminding me about the discussion that we had. So the page on the measures and how the MYP would be reported upon was removed, and anyone who had looked at the prior version at Committee of the Whole would have expected tonight, I would think, to see that page in there. So I think that in and of itself is a big difference. You're right. If they were to watch the video of the meeting, they would, I'm talking about, sorry, the public would understand what the conversation was around the decision to remove that page. But I do feel that that's a substantive deletion from the MYP document from Committee of the Whole to today. So I would just reiterate my wish that we put this out there, at least to the people who, at least via an email blast to the people that participated in the consultation, to give them the heads up that this is ready. Please take a look. I suspect we wouldn't hear a lot back, but I'd feel much more confident in my role as a trustee if we do give the public fair notice that this is ready to go before we come and vote to enact it. Thank you.
I would just like to respond that that page has not been deleted. It has been moved to another place because it's not part of the plan. It's part of the operational procedure. Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. This is a pretty procedural piece, but I find that sometimes we end up voting on a thing we're not really intending to vote on. There's the question that's being put before us is the vote on the floor is should we adopt the agenda, and the challenge that's being raised is should we move the MYSP adoption into 4.2. So I would like to actually vote on that question and then have a vote on the agenda on the far side. So I will move the motion that item 4. The agenda be amended such that item 4.1.3 be moved to section 4.2 for future action.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Trustee Rocha. Okay, we're going to do that vote by show of hands. All in favor of changing the agenda and moving the item to 4.2 for future action. Please raise your hands if you're in favor of that. We have Trustee Rocha, Trustee Baxter, Trustee Shuttleworth, and Trustee Zhang, all opposed. Trustee Bryden, Trustee Ahmed, Trustee Amos, Trustee Gray, Trustee Daniele, Vice Chair Oliver, and Chair Collard. That motion, and the two student trustees as well. I'm sorry, that motion did not pass. We are back to the main motion, and I'm calling the question.
On point of information, this motion for the original agenda.
Thank you. That motion passed, but not unanimously. Trustee Rocha voted against. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest for this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we are now up to item 2.0, delegations, presentations to the board. And we begin with 2.1, Inspire Awards. I will happily pass the gavel to Trustees Shuttleworth and Gray, the co-chairs of the Inspire Awards, to preside over this evening's awards.
Good evening, everyone. So this is always my favorite part of the agenda, the Inspire Awards. So an Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board. The people that are nominated have gone above and beyond to support our students. Trustees are honored to be able to recognize these often unsung heroes that have been nominated by families, staff, students, volunteers, and the community. They have been recognized as people who stand out and support HDSB students in their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. So tonight we have 2 people here as well as 3 that will be presented at the school. But we'll start with the 2 groups that are here tonight. And the first people are from Tiger Jeet Singh Public School. Trustee Ahmed will present this award to them, and they are Chantel McDonald and Sabrina Sarkar, who are here on behalf of the Tiger Jeet Singh Primary School Healthy Food Bin Team. Chantel and Sabrina, as part of the Healthy Food Bin Team at Tiger Jeet Singh, you represent a group that plays a vital role in ensuring that students have access to nutritious food during the school day. As part of that team, you engage parent volunteers, teacher volunteers, and students on top of managing the ordering, cleaning, and filling of bins, delivering these nutritious items to classrooms each week. Your collaborative efforts foster a supportive environment that emphasizes the importance of nutrition for student success. As ambassadors for the Student Nutrition Program, the Healthy Food Bin Team has welcomed parent groups and educators from other schools to observe your operations and share your expertise. Your decade-long commitment has not only provided students with the nourishment they need to learn effectively, but has also helped train other schools in establishing similar programs. By showcasing how an entire school community can come together to support one another, you exemplify the impact of collective action in nurturing students and fueling the future. Congratulations. Next up, we have Grace Liu from Iroquois Ridge High School, and Trustee Rocha will be presenting the award to her. Now be ready to be inspired, everyone. Grace, you have shown exceptional leadership by supporting underrepresented students at Iroquois Ridge High School and beyond. You have led initiatives focused on student well-being and inclusivity, providing over 100 HDSB students with meaningful volunteer opportunities that enhance their leadership skills and community engagement. In your role as external senator of the HDSB Mental Health Committee, co-president of both the Math and Computer Science Clubs and other leadership positions, you show your commitment to uplifting your peers on top of fulfilling your own academic and work commitments. Recognized by Forbes as the young leader revolutionizing mental health for underrepresented youth, you inspire many with your own personal journey as a newcomer to Canada, who became a change maker. Your impactful mentorship has fostered a culture of peer support, engaging students to become leaders themselves. By building sustainable programs and collaborating with school administrators and external organizations, you have created long-lasting resources that enhance student support systems. Your dedication ensures that your initiatives will benefit not only current students, but future generations to come. Congratulations, Grace.
We are now up to our student trustee reports.
We still have 3 more people that I just want to
my
notice.
goodness, I'm
mention.
sorry.
That's okay. So again, we also have 3 other recipients of the Inspire Awards this evening that will receive their awards at their schools. First, we have Jillian Howarth from Georgetown District High School, Chris Vienschik from Harrison Public School, and Moxta Yannick Harlos from the Welcome Center. Congratulations to those those nominees who were not able to join us tonight. And please remember, everybody out there, to look and see where you also can inspire, or you can nominate inspiring individuals. Thank you so much.
I almost jumped the gun there. I get all excited about the student trustee report. Student trustees Ochu and Ho, please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, staff, superintendents, trustees, and viewers. I'm Trustee Ochu.
And I'm Trustee Ho.
And today we're bringing you the highly anticipated student trustee report from the November board meeting. This one is quite the doozy.
On Wednesday, October 9th, Trustee Ochu and I led our first Student Senate meeting of this year, where we welcomed over 120 student senators to their roles, the subcommittees they can apply to, as well as student Senate norms. This meeting ran from 6 to 8:30 p.m. online, and we were very glad we were able to meet this year's incredible batch of senators. During this meeting, we had past senators give a brief excerpt on their experience with the Student Senate, allowing for some amazing shared mentorship, as well as work to brainstorm different issues students were passionate about working on for this school year. We finished off by giving the senators some action items like introducing themselves as senators to their schools and applying to subcommittee working groups, which we hope to talk about a bit more in the months to come. We also wanted to remind everyone that if there happens to be any issue or topic that you would like to receive some student feedback or opinions on, that the Student Senate is really a perfect place to receive it. We also started extending invites to some of our wonderful superintendents and trustees to speak at our upcoming in-person Senate meetings. So also, please feel free to express interest if you want to attend those as well.
On Saturday, October 19th, Trustee Ho and I attended the Youth Democracy Forum run by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario as representatives of the HDSB. At the event, we met and engaged with many youth interested in municipal government, as well as engaged with the speakers.
One such speaker was the mayor of Wilmot, Natasha Solomon, who was also the youngest mayor in Canadian history. This session ran from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and was extremely engaging. We were able to learn a lot about the importance of our democracy and how we can work to support its vitality in our local communities. As well, this morning, Trustee Ochu and I had the privilege of presenting at the HEPA meeting, where we presented a quick introduction about student trustees and how elementary principals and staff could support their student senators. We had the opportunity to gather some feedback regarding upcoming mental health projects, and we look forward to future opportunities to address HEPA and work with them as well.
On Wednesday, October 30th, Trustee Ho and I met with former equity member Connor Gross, as well as staff members Shalita Walker, Mina Johal, Naveem Manners, to discuss the formation of the new equity committee, along with the rapidly approaching Human Rights Symposium. On Thursday, October 29th, Trustee Ho and I attended the Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Committee meeting. It was incredibly informative, and we are introduced to the new Environmental Leadership website, as well as the new Board District Climate Action Program. Additionally, we looked over Generation Green Days for grades 9 to 12 students, as well as LSF Climate Youth Forum for grades 5 to 8 students.
On Monday, October 22nd, Trustee Ochu and I met with Trustee Mentor Trustee Mentor Oliver to discuss the first initiative we began to work on, which is mental health or flex days, which we also hope to discuss later down the line. And additionally, this Thursday, Trustee Ochu and I will be headed to Toronto to attend the Ontario Student Trustee Association Fall General Meeting Conference. Trustee Ochu and I are so excited to be representing the HSB and engage in many fruitful, enlightening discussions with our fellow student trustees, provincial stakeholders, and friends from across the province.
And that concludes our student trustee report for the November 5th board meeting. Thank you all for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for our student trustees? I see Trustee Daniele.
Thank you so much for such a fulsome report, and I love hearing everything that's going on. Excuse me. I wonder if you could give us a little more information on the rapidly approaching Human Rights Symposium. Is there a date set for that yet that we should put in our calendars?
Unfortunately, not at this moment. There has not been a date set, but we will be getting back to you about that as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you, through your chair. To the both student trustees, you spoke about flex days in terms of mental health. Could you expand on what you mean by that? Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. So this has been something that we were very passionate about for a really long time. So at my school personally, we have things like Try It Days where students would get about like a whole day off to try different activities. And we also believe having mental health days is something really crucial and something that we have to destigmatize. We believe that students should be able to take a day to not only be able to learn about their mental health, but also nurture it as well. Especially when it comes to exam season, we feel that students do get really stressed out with a lot of upcoming exams and course load. So we hope to bring kind of a recommendation to all high schools across the HSB and kind of providing a framework to make sure they're able to implement some type of flex day or try it day at their schools.
If I may add to that, the Flex Day program will be happening 2 times in the academic year, right before exam season, for the reasons that Caitlin mentioned. The exam season very stressful for students in high school, and we thought that a day where no new material is taught, and instead test-taking strategies and mental health strategies will be present at each high school, so students can come to school, actually, sort of clear their head with all the new information that they're receiving about their exams, just to improve the mental health aspect of students across the high schools of the Halton District School Board.
Can I follow up? So thank you. That's really great to hear. So I'm just checking. The flex day is a scheduled day. So it's almost for me, I think about like a transition day. So to go from class, have a little break, and then start exams, that kind of idea?
Yeah, and we also understand that it's very difficult to, align like one specific day to all high schools, just because we understand it's kind of difficult with scheduling and things like that. I think what we want to do is provide instead, a framework or a list of resources just to help schools decide for themselves what type of action they would like to take in regards to how they want to go about with the flex day. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't see any other speakers on the list, but I really like the idea of your flex days, and I hope that they're very successful. Thanks for reporting on that. Our next item is 2.4, delegations. As per our delegation governance procedure, each delegate shall be allowed up to 5 minutes to present their delegation. Delegates must refrain from using derogatory language and from making statements that would personally identify individuals, including students, staff, community members, or trustees. Any delegate who fails to adhere to this restriction will be ruled out of order by the chair, and their presentation will be immediately terminated. I'd like to welcome Ms. Galvin up to the presentation desk, and we've seen Ms. Galvin before, so I know she knows how all of the tech works. I will be timing your delegation, and we'll give you a wave when there's 1 minute remaining. You are allowed up to 5 minutes for your delegation. Please begin when you're ready. You need to use the mic.
Went to the town hall meetings, the consultations, and none of them knew that this was being discussed at the board today. None of them. So if you consulted 3,000 people, don't you think that a few more people would have shown up for such an important document? Doesn't that concern you? That this is an important document, and I don't think you should rush it. So I'm telling
Please have a seat.
Nobody I know knows about it. All right, I'm going to respectfully request that, there were two delegators' presentations made to this board since I've last seen you in February, and they were allowed to go past their 5-minute mark. They were from identified groups, and what they had to say was really important. And, and I understand why you let them go past the 5-minute mark. They also broke the rule of identifying people, and you didn't rule them out of order. Me, on the other hand,
are you taking up your time now to ask for more time?
No, I'm going to respectfully request that you give me 1 extra minute.
I am not going to give you extra time.
Since there's nobody else here.
But we have a full agenda, and you were told you had 5 minutes, and you've already used nearly a full minute.
But other people were told they had 5 minutes.
This is not a conversation.
You've already
Ms.
started
Galvin,
timing me?
this is not a conversation.
Okay, I didn't start yet.
Okay.
I was asking a question before I started for clarification.
Okay.
We're starting now? All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. As you know, I'm an active resident of Halton, and my 2 daughters went through the Halton school system. Professionally, I'm the director of an organization that helps youth get back into school after the devastating effects of prolonged school closures. In this capacity, I have a few questions and concerns with this MYP. First, I see that the commitments are arranged in a circle. And so does this signify that it's an equal importance for all 6 of these pillars? I was thinking, wouldn't it make more sense to position learning, engagement, and achievement at the center of this circle, at the very heart of the school board's plan? That's just one thing. So regarding the learning, engagement, and achievements page, I'd like to suggest the addition of a commitment to re-engagement of students. I know you have a re-engagement person, but I've seen other boards close their re-engagement teams due to funding. So I think that committing to re-engaging those students who've fallen off your radar would be a really important and beneficial addition to this document. Dr. Irvin Student is the president of the Institute of 21st Century Questions. He led an international team studying the effects of school closures around the world. He's the brains behind Project Youth Energy and has advised premiers across Canada and governments around the world. He just published his 5th book on the effects of school closures. So that was our work. Using government stats, he's calculated there are 113,000 young people across Canada who fell out of school during the pandemic and are not being educated at all. That's 113 uneducated or undereducated people who make up our workforce and communities. That number doesn't include on-reserve schools or any post-secondary students, so the number is actually a lot higher, which doesn't bode well for our futures and families. I hope you consider adding a commitment to re-engagement in that policy. Regarding kindness, connection, and the community page, supporting grassroots initiatives, I'm just wondering how they're vetted. Is there a strategy in place to ensure that we're protecting our youth, especially the little guys, from grassroots organizations who might be political in nature or who are spreading misinformation or dangerous ideologies? I'd also like to suggest the word respect be changed to mutual respect. I like support positive community engagement, but I have to tell you that especially in light of the fact that people who participated in those town halls were not made aware that this was coming up at board, I don't think that that was very positive. On the upside, the town halls that you ran to get info from the public were a good step. I participated in one, as I said. I emailed you guys afterwards, and I took pictures of what we submitted to the facilitators. And none of what we submitted to the facilitators are in this document. So that's a bummer. We're not happy about that. As I said, since I last presented in February, 2 people were allowed to speak longer. They were given meetings with staff after their presentations. They broke the rules during the presentations, but they were allowed to go. I don't think that was fair. You've always cut me off whenever I've talked to you, even when I was interrupted. So I want that noted on a public record that you've never let me speak longer. So what that tells me is that this board is committed to fairness, but it's more fair for some people, and that's wrong. It's not fair. In my February presentation to you and in my May email to you, I sent you all a link on the meta study by Dr. David Haskell at Wilfrid Laurier University. Did anybody read that study? It talks about DEI and the DE policies and that they don't work and they cause more harm. I really wanted to get some input from trustees on that document because it's a really important study. So I'm just going to finish up, okay? I'm going to forget those two things. In short, I think this document focuses on a lot of negative concepts and assumptions couched in positive sounding words that I believe will just continue to depress, demoralize, or anger many, many students and further divide people by special identity. It's not working. This MYP also commits to the UN's global goals, yet never once does it mention Canada or even Ontario. It includes a fatalistic view of climate change, hinting that the world itself is not sustainable. No wonder there's so much anxiety and stress among young people today. I think if this document were to focus more on teaching the knowledge and skills kids need to be sustainable adults and include some positive view of Canadian society and our achievements and take a less political, fear-based, negative, blame and shame approach to education, I think your students and teachers would fare better now and in the future.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Are there any questions for Ms. Galvin? We have up to 10 minutes for questions of the delegate. Trustee Rocha.
Through the chair to you, the delegator, Liz. Hi. Thank you for speaking this evening. How were you made aware that the MYP was going to be discussed at this evening's meeting?
Well, I asked at the town hall when it would come up again, and the facilitator didn't know, so none of us were sure. I called another parent that was at the town hall that I was at, and he didn't know about it either, so I went online and checked. And he couldn't be here tonight, and just none of them, nobody knew about it, obviously. You know, these people made time to go to these town halls and talk to these facilitators, and
thank you.
They weren't even...
Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair to the delegate, thank you for sharing your information. I had a question about the town hall that you participated in. How did you know that that was happening, that there was an opportunity for you to participate in that way?
I can't remember, sorry. But none of what we presented is in this policy, nothing.
Thank you for the questions. Are there any other, Trustee Shuttleworth?
Thank you. I have a question about, am I allowed to ask questions of staff? No, only questions of you. And I don't think I have a question. Thank you.
You can ask your question to staff when we get to the item on the agenda.
Perfect. I'll ask it then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, thank you very much for coming to speak with us this evening, Ms. Galvin.
Did anybody want one of these brochures about the work that we did to re-engage kids in school? I have one.
Can you leave them? Leave it somewhere?
I have
if you leave
one.
it, then we can all look.
Sure. Yeah.
We are now up to items under our Section 3 of our consent agenda. For approval, we have the minutes of our meeting on October 1st. And for receipt, we have our outstanding action items. Please do not walk across the boardroom. We have our outstanding action items, board report schedule, policy and governance procedure review schedule, approved minutes of committee of the whole September 17th, operational plan, end of year update, and correspondence to the board. Be it resolved that the HDSB approve the consent agenda and receive the information items for November 5, 2024. Trustee Shuttleworth, would you make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I will.
Trustee Ahmed, would you second this motion? Are there any items that need to be pulled for discussion? Vice Chair Oliver.
Thank you. I'd like to pull report 24129.
Okay, seeing no other trustees requesting to pull an item, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So this pertains to the summary provided in the operational plan. When looking at literacy data for grade 3 students, where staff acknowledge that the pandemic has really interrupted, I guess, and gotten in the way of these youngsters progressing with their literacy skills. And so I'm wondering what sorts of programs are put into play to ensure that these students can catch up in their literacy skills. And I'm wondering if we, as a system, are experiencing any barriers in terms of, what sorts of other resources could we benefit from potentially to support our students in this area?
Thank you. Through the chair to Vice Chair Oliver, I'll take that question. I'll begin, and then I think I'm going to ask Superintendent Frankovich to join in as well. So the grade 3 students in particular, in the last school year would have experienced quite a bit of disruption because between 2020 and 22, all 3 of their school years were interrupted. So JK, SK, and grade 1. And those are 3 very pivotal years in terms of literacy development. And although we tried to do a very good job virtually, it doesn't really lend itself that well to young children. And so we are seeing these gaps and certainly have been trying to address them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Frankovich, who will talk to you about some of the things that the department has been doing to support our learners.
Thank you. Through your chair to Trustee Oliver, to Vice Chair Oliver. As Associate Director Salmini pointed out, last year's grade 3 students were quite impacted by pandemic closures. This was the group that was in junior kindergarten in March 2020. The following year, they also had in-person, those involved in in-person learning were interrupted by mandatory school closures, and we also had students in virtual school at that time. During their grade 1 year, that was our year of socially distanced learning. So it was a very different practice in our classrooms across the system. And that year we also had a shutdown after winter break, and we did not resume in-person learning until February. In grade 2, for our students whose families opted for French immersion, those students would be in 100% immersion and have very limited English. So other things to consider during that time is, in general, we had higher rates of absenteeism. We had students who were quarantining more than once. We had that reduced opportunity for oral language development, I think, which was key. You hear from teachers throughout the system when we came out of the pandemic. That opportunity to have conversations with their classmates and with their educators was lost, and that was definitely missed. And challenges with writing instruction, being really dependent on our technology, really limited that opportunity for early letter formation and development of those fine motor skills. If we look specifically at our results, as Associate Director Salmini said, yes, we experienced a decrease, which is aligned with provincial results as well. We remain above the provincial average in grade 3 reading, writing, and math. Some of the supports that we had coming out of the pandemic include using the ministry funding for 56 of our itinerant resource teachers. which were used in 58 of our schools during 22-23 school year. We also had, we experienced a reduction in those roles as the focus changed. So the IRTs were supporting kindergarten to grade 8. The following year, it switched to supporting kindergarten to grade 3. And that's why we had a decrease in the number of those positions. So we had 17 positions in the 23-24 school year. Learning outside of the school day was a focus, and we used the ministry funding to provide opportunities for after-school tutoring programs, both in the spring and summer of 2022 and 2023, and then back to in-person summer school learning opportunities. This past summer, we had nearly 600 students from grades 2 to 5 participate in 8 days of in-person learning at 7 of our schools across the district. And I believe the last part of your question was around opportunities. And I think what we would love to see is funding to be reinstated to what it was a couple years back, so that we have those reading specialist teachers in higher numbers than we're currently experiencing. Additional opportunities for professional learning would be welcome, as would funding for resources.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for that detailed answer. That's a lot of information. Thank you. Seeing no other items to be pulled, are there any objections to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We are now up to section 4.0, items for ratification action. 4.1.1, the Audit Committee Annual Report to the Board of Trustees and Annual Report to the Ministry, Report 24130, submitted by the Audit Committee. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees accept the 2023-2024 Audit Committee Annual Report to the Board of Trustees and the 2023-2024 Audit Committee Annual Report to the Ministry. Trustee Daniele, would you make this motion?
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Rocha, would you second this motion?
I would.
Superintendent Nagoy, would you like to speak to this report?
Sure. For the chair, this is the annual report to the audit committee. The annual report to the board and the ministry from the audit committee, outlining the work that has taken place through the year, and will be also forwarded to the ministry for their information. And would be happy to take any questions together with the chair of the audit committee, Trustee Daniele.
Did you want to add anything to Superintendent Nagoy's comments?
I was just going to mention that these do outline the work of the committee with the external and internal auditors. It discharges the audit committee's responsibilities over financial reporting controls and risk management. And let trustees know that they were reviewed by the audit committee at the September meeting, and they comply with the regulation. And if anybody has any questions, I will happily pass them over to Superintendent Nagoy.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate regarding this item? Seeing none. Whoops. Please cast your vote. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Our next item is 4.1.2, Student Voices on Anti-Semitism, Report 24131, submitted by Trustee Baxter. Be it resolved that the board conduct research to seek insights from self-identified Jewish HDSB students regarding their experience of anti-Semitism on HDSB properties, as well as their feedback on the effectiveness of the HDSB response and existing tools to address hate and discrimination in schools, and that a report of the results be presented to the board in February 2025. Trustee Baxter, would you move this motion?
Yes, please.
Trustee Rocha, would you second this motion?
Yes.
Trustee Baxter, would you like to speak to this report?
Sorry, I got it wrong that time. Yes, thank you. Anti-Semitism is sometimes called the oldest hate. It is persistent in Canada and surges periodically, and certainly has done so since October 7th worldwide, and unfortunately in Halton and the HDSB. Staff have shared the work they have done and continue to do to support system learning on anti-Semitism, for which I would like to express sincere gratitude to Director Ennis and all those staff who lead that work. However, students have not been formally asked for their perspectives and experiences, and that is what this motion seeks to do via research like that was done in 2021 to seek student voice on their experiences of anti-Black racism. I would like to ask Director Ennis to comment on the timeline suggested, as it is based on the timeline under which the 2021 work was conducted, and this work is anticipated to mirror that, but certainly look to staff for guidance and feedback, and of course welcome feedback and questions from my fellow trustees. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Baxter. The timelines are very tight. We're in November to get this report, and in particular, part of the motion asks for feedback on the effectiveness of our response, which is ongoing. I don't think 3 months is doable. I've consulted with our research team, and we think a more appropriate timeline would be June 2025.
Would you like to respond? Yeah.
Sure, through the chair. Thank you, Director Ennis. I would just ask if there's any particular reason that you think this work would take significantly longer than the work that was done in 2021.
We'll welcome Dr. Bishaglia to the presentation desk.
Good evening, everyone. So through Madam Chair, I think it would be important to vet the questions that students would be asked, and so providing us with additional time to not only analyze the data, vet the questions, and do a vetting process as well for the thematic analysis. I think it'll give us the opportunity to do the best possible job and to ensure that the voices that we're capturing and that we're analyzing, we're interpreting from the respective lens. So in 2021, the team was able to have someone on board that had the lens from an anti-Black racism perspective. So we would look to do the same for this particular project.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. So I would just ask, how does this work differ? So the delay of several months in producing the report would be due to the work that needs to be done to find that person who, sorry, I'm not sure what their role was or what their title was, but the person that held that role in 2021, that role would need to be sourced?
It would essentially be for us to take the time and do a proper vetting of not only the question, but also the recruitment strategy. So my understanding of the motion is that it's pertaining to self-identifying Jewish students. And that is very different than what the work with the Student Voice for Anti-Black Racism was, which was open to all students of every community and every identity group. So we would need time to vet our process to ensure that we're casting the net wide enough that the respondent group is indeed a representative and wide sample of self-identifying students. And to vet that, it just takes time for reflection and for refinement of the strategies. And given that it's already almost the second week of November, I think it's just prudent to say that, more time for that kind of reflection would be warranted.
I'm going to move on to Trustee Naveed Ahmed.
Thank you, Chair. So first, I would like to thank Trustee Baxter for bringing this important motion to the board table. I wholeheartedly support this effort, and I have a few things to add. The events in the Middle East have been devastating for us all, especially for our students. We all have felt the effects of what is happening there, especially our school community went through a lot. We have seen cases of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian racism like never before. The root causes for these hateful actions are bigotry, intolerance, narrow-mindedness, or whatever. So anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Palestinian racism are the links of the same hateful chain. We cannot separate them if we ever have to find a meaningful and true solution. Our schools should be safe for everyone, for our Jewish students, our Muslim students, our Palestinian students, our Black students, and every other student that I'm failing to name here. Justice is never selective, otherwise it is not justice. Our students are one body, and we cannot separate body parts and try to make the body safer. So all I want to say is, since we are using the board's resources, our staff is going to put their expertise and effort to work anyway. So instead of just doing the partial survey of self-identifying Jewish students, why not expand our survey to include Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism? As I mentioned earlier, all these three issues are interlinked. They all arise out of the conflict in the Middle East, where we have seen a sharp rise in the cases of anti-Semitism. We have also seen evidence of rising cases of Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism. I suggest that Trustee Baxter amend the motion to make it more wholesome, more inclusive, and let's make our schools safe for all our students.
Trustee Baxter, you're next on the speakers list.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you, Trustee Ahmed. First, I would just like to ask a refining question of Dr. Brishaglia. So I believe in 2021, as you had stated, the invitation was put out to all students in the board to participate in the work. I'm wondering if the same thing could not be done in this case and allow students to come forward as they wish. The spirit of the motion really is to ask the students, or to give the opportunity to students who are most affected by anti-Semitism, but not only. I understand students who are not Jewish are certainly impacted by witnessing anti-Semitism and may be mistakenly subjected to it. I'm not sure. So could we possibly tighten up the timeline by mirroring almost exactly the work that was done in 2021, whereby the invitation is put out to all students in the board to volunteer to participate if they wish? I would assume that the intention of having self-identified Jewish students participate would on its own be fulfilled, because those would be the students most likely, in my assumption, to be interested in sharing their experiences, because they are the students most likely to be subjected to it. So perhaps if the work in 2021 could be more closely mirrored, we could meet the timelines that worked in 2021. Just like to get your thoughts on that, please. Thank you.
Through Madam Chair, I think it's a situation of going slow to going fast, right? It's the outcome of the data gathering will only be as good as the methodology that we employ. So part of the motion, if I'm recalling correctly off the top of my head, is to look at the effectiveness of strategies that have been implemented. And my understanding is that additional strategies, in fact, have been put in place. And so providing additional time will also give us the opportunity to ensure that students have indeed have had the opportunity to even see those strategies in practice. So a parallel to the 2021 report would be the harmful language protocol. So that was a specific question that was posed to students to understand the effectiveness of the implementation of that protocol. So it's really about being reflective as we develop those questions, really understand what are the strategies that we can, confidently expect students to have seen, so that when we're gathering data on the effectiveness of strategies, in fact, we can have some level of confidence that students are commenting on strategies and processes that they've experienced in the classrooms. February sounds like a very long time from now, but if we also consider protected time for secondary students where they're engaged in exams, we consider the winter break, we're really only talking about weeks. So yes, it sounds like a long time away, but these type of reports are used widely in the board to then develop and reflect on policies. So I think it's only prudent and wise to go slow so that we can ensure that not only the methodology is accurate, but that we're providing families and students the opportunity to come forward at a time that they're most comfortable. And yes, absolutely, we could pose the call to the large audience. My only caution is that if you're looking specifically for self-identifying Jewish students, we will have no way of vetting that, of course, in the recruitment process. So as students come on board, then there is an assumption there that whoever is showing up in those spaces is in fact Jewish. And so these are the kinds of methodological considerations that we would need to consider and really reflect on.
Would you like to follow up? You also had a comment from Trustee Ahmed, and I didn't know if you wanted to respond to that or if you'd like to go back on the list later.
Sure. Sorry, I have to absorb that.
Okay, I'll
sorry, I can respond to
Okay.
to Trustee Ahmed though. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I would caution against diluting the intention of the motion. Certainly there are many types of hate that exist in society and in our schools, and I would just be concerned that the work would lose focus. I certainly would support a future motion coming to board or any work that staff wanted to take on their own without a board motion to look at other types of hate in our board. But I would prefer that this motion stand on its own to address anti-Semitism alone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Trustee Bryden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Better now? Better. Feedback. It strikes me that there is importance to having enough time to do the research well, and at the same time there is importance to moving quickly enough that the research is relevant to the challenges being faced by, in this case, the Jewish community at the present time. And finding the balance therein is not an exact science. Hopefully the research is. I sit in a position having, I was aware of the Christmas break. We add in the projected time in January and February looks unrealistic. That said, from my seat, June looks more like, I think that we will struggle to feel that we are responsive to a community that is deeply shaken right now if we wait till the end of the school year to be reporting back. I would prefer to see something come earlier in spring, that we might have a couple of months toward the end of April. Most of your data collection is happening in February, your analysis in March, your report writing in April. It is tight, but we are asking you to be ambitious, and that's kind of where my brain is settling.
Trustee Daniel.
Thank you very much. And my comments echo that of my trustee colleague from Burlington in the timing. And for me, it's a logistics piece. I know how busy June is. I know that we're getting our spec ed plan, our budget, everything out. So I think this is an incredibly important piece of work. And I think it's really important to take the time to do it right. But I think the time that we receive it as trustees, given the other potential workload around our June meeting, is also significant. So I do like the timeline that Trustee Bryden put forward. I was going to say something along the same lines, is can we reach a compromise of April or May, so that we're getting ahead of those other incredibly heavy data-ridden documents that we are going to be dealing with at that point. So that was my first comment, is I was wondering if, with the doctor and director's approval, if Trustee Baxter would be willing to amend the timeline just that little bit. And then my second piece is around Trustee Ahmed's comments, because I thought he brought up some really good comments and a lot of really, really good points. I don't think it's necessary to change this particular motion, because this is a report that has a background in multi-year plan alignments and governance alignment and all that. And I would very much hope going forward that we will see the same sort of a report and recommendation on what everything you're talking about, because I do think that is also incredibly important. And I think it would be very important is to have that background report rather than just adding it ad hoc to this motion and possibly muddying that up. So that's just my thoughts on this.
Before we have any second-time speakers, I'm just going to add in, I was thinking very similar to both of the other trustees who've spoken about the timelines, and I was wondering if you might want to amend the report of the results, preliminary results, presented to Committee of the Whole in April, with a final report to the board in May. That's what I was thinking, and I fully support this motion, so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find middle ground here. Moving back to Trustee Baxter, and I will be letting Director Ennis speak after Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would like to agree. I would like to suggest that we, or that I amend the motion to change the date to Committee of the Whole in April, with the final report coming to board in May. Thank you.
And as the seconder, Trustee Rocha, are you agreeable to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and final speaker on this is, we're going to have the director, and then we'll have Trustee Ahmed again.
Thank you so much, Chair. Certainly, we will try our very best to meet timelines as stipulated in the motion. I am very aware of the capacity issues of the research department, and that is of great concern to me. The multi-year plan, the new plan, this is a multi-year plan year, a new multi-year plan year, which also means a lot of work for the research department, because we then have to revise all of our surveys to reflect the new multi-year plan, to capture the data that is in the new priorities and commitments. And so there's a lot to consider that's not been discussed. And I'm also reflective on what Trustee Ahmed said, and perhaps Trustee Dr. Bishali and I and other members of the team can reflect on his comments as well about how we capture other voices.
Thank you, and Trustee Ahmed as the final speaker.
Thank you, Chair. So, thank you for my fellow trustees who commented on my comments. I would like to ask Director Ennis, do you prefer that I bring in a motion for that, or
Trustee Ahmed, your question is not relevant to this motion. You can ask that question under clarifying questions.
Sure.
Thank
you.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers, we have an amendment on the floor. It's been moved by Trustee Baxter and seconded by Trustee Rocha that the dates be changed as she mentioned, that it would go to committee of the whole in April and board in May. We are going to vote on the amendment. Is that in the pressed one? That is in the pressed one, so I will find it. It's coming. It'll be there soon. Cue the Jeopardy music. We will do the amendment by show of hands. So all those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none, the amendment passes unanimously. We will now vote on the main motion. Please cast your votes. Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Trustee Baxter. We are now up. You know what? Let's have a bio break and come back in 5 minutes. Call us back to order. Our next agenda item is 4.1.3, multi-year plan adoption, submitted by the Multi-Year Strategic Plan Steering Committee, and I will put the motion on the floor. That the Board of Trustees adopt the 2024 to 2028 multi-year plan as appended to Report 24132. Trustee Amos, would you move this motion?
Yes, please.
Vice Chair Oliver, would you second this motion?
I second.
Would either of you like to speak to this report?
Okay, thank you. Before you is final version of the multi-year strategic plan for the year 2024 to 28. As we've heard before, when we've had the ability to comment on this and seen previous versions, a lot of work has gone into this report. There was a number of meetings with key stakeholders, which included, hundreds and thousands of people overall, and a lot of meetings of the steering committee, as well as a number of opportunities for trustee involvement in the actual development of the commitments, and later feedback on the earlier drafts. And what we have now is our final draft, which outlines the 6 commitments, all centered around our students. Thank you very much.
Trustee Amos.
Thank you. Through you. I've been involved in a lot of multi-year plan development in the years that I've been at the board. And I would like to say I believe that there has been more community input on this multi-year plan than there has ever been. And one of the things that the committee really focused on was trying to make sure that we heard all voices and all voices were a part of the plan. And I think for a large part we have succeeded. And I'd like to thank everyone involved who has had a say. Trustees have had a couple opportunities to provide impact or input, and we took all of that input and tried to make sure that it was a part of what the plan was, because as trustees we are responsible for it. I have to say that I am really excited about this plan, about all the things that it's going to potentially bring to the system, and I really look forward to, while we're not responsible for it, we will be able to see the operational plan that will allow us to see some of the things that are going to be going on in the system. The next 4 years for this board are going to be in a very exciting time, and I really do think that we thought way beyond that, so that hopefully all of our students, not hopefully, all of our students will be equipped to go out and to do the best that they can. So I just like to say that I'm really proud of what we as a group have come together, so thank you for everybody for your input.
Thank you very much. Now moving on to our speakers. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This actually follows on quite nicely from what Trustee Amos was just saying, and I have a question regarding the delegation that was spoken to. So what Trustee Amos said is we've had such great, this multi-year plan you see as being one of the greatest that we've had in terms of community feedback. Our delegation this evening spoke of some information that was missed. So I'm just wondering, how did we determine, or did we take in all the information from all of the, I'm going to call it, I don't know, open house, the focus groups, the town halls. That's the one. Thank you, Trustee Gray. How did we determine, or how did we use the information from the town halls to inform our multi-year plan? And were there pieces that were not considered?
Thank you, Trustee Shuttleworth, and through the chair. Certainly, all of the input from the town halls, all of the consultation with all of the stakeholder groups were taken into consideration. And of course, we understand that not every comment, every suggestion would be reflected. We do understand that there was a diversity of voices. However, our team that we worked with, Ember Experience, and I just want to take this opportunity to say a big thanks to Nora Marsh, Jesse Adams, and Ashwara Jayaprakash for the great work that they did in leading this consultation. But they had to, as a great researcher, and you would know, Trustee Shuttleworth, is to theme ideas and to theme the work, and so that we could distill it into something that we could work with. So it's not that the voices are not reflected, it's that we had to chunk and theme things in a way that it would make sense for us to use as a system operationally.
I could also add to that, and it's gone. I'm so sorry. If I think of it later, I will say it. Did you have a follow-up?
So my concern is that if there was not large, but a portion of feedback that maybe was in contrast to other feedback that was there, as a researcher, it's still used. So I'm just wondering if we did have those voices that maybe were coming from a different lens or from a different position, how did we use that to inform our multi-year plan? Or did we?
I can say that we did. We saw all of the themes, both sides, multiple sides of some of the different aspects. And we also had to make sure that whatever we were producing was aligned with the Ministry of Education, with the Ed Act, and with all of the other laws that govern what we're allowed to do as a school board, including the section of the Ed Act that now tells us what has to be in a multi-year plan. We couldn't just ignore that and say, oh, we're not going to do that one. So yeah, we did our best to make sure that everything was thoughtfully considered. And while some things couldn't make it into the plan, obviously, because we have over 3,000 people contributing, we were not in a position to use every word, but it was all sifted through.
Thank you. If I could just draw trustees' attention to the report. It talks about how in August, the work that was done in August, which includes the presentation of a consultation report, which provided the details as to the feedback that was received from the community. And the trustees and the senior team had an opportunity to review that and understand the themes and the concepts and the feedback in a more comprehensive manner. And then following that, on August 19th and 20th, there were full sessions held with trustees and the senior team to theme that and identify the priorities that they saw for inclusion into the MYP. So in terms of distilling the broader feedback and engagement from the community, that was the exercise that assisted in distilling what you see in front of you, or started the initial steps of identifying what was included in the MYP, and then that was further refined throughout the last couple of months.
Trustee Shane.
Thank you, Chair. Before speaking about a specific area in the MYSP, I want to bring attention to everyone on how to set goals. There are many ways to set goals. SMART goals is a widely accepted method. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So if an objective is not achievable or not measurable, then that is not a good objective. In the case of MYSP, measurable means a specific objective is covered in the measurement framework. So in the future, the measurement can be reflected in the monitoring report. In this MYSP version 5, the term systemic barriers is mentioned in 2 places: Indigenous education commitment and the human rights, equity, and inclusion commitment. I understand the Indigenous students are facing specific challenges that the board should allocate more resources to support them. But in the human rights, equity, and inclusion commitment, systemic barriers could refer to a global issue that exists in our policies, procedures, and educational practices. Human rights are constitutional and fundamental rights for every Canadian. If there's a systemic barrier identified that has impacts on human rights, we must address it immediately, not for the future as a long-term goal. The board is responsible to ensure students and the staff are protected equally under the human rights law. This is a principle. Addressing systemic barrier should not appear in the MYSP as a direction. In the measurement framework, there is none of the measurement that can help us identify to measure the systemic barriers. It makes the objective not measurable. Not measurable means not achievable. Both objective under human rights, equity, and inclusion commitments emphasize on identity. Identity-related data is important in the analysis and the research for identifying and addressing issues accurately. However, overemphasizing on identity could lead to identity politics that compromise fairness. National Post has 2 articles published in 2024. One has the title, Up to Courts to Push Back on Discriminatory DEI Policies. The other
I'm
article,
sorry, Trustee Zhang, you've used your entire 3 minutes. If you would like to go back on the list, you may.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. I had the opportunity this fall to travel through all but 2 of my 15 schools in the Hills, and I spoke with many of the administrators in the schools and came to learn just how excited they were about the planning that was going into this multi-year plan, but also in some of the commitments that were being identified as early as mid-fall. And so I was excited to hear of their support for this, but also to actually see some of these commitments already being really reflected in their work day to day in their schools. I wanted to ask a question, though, tonight, based on some information coming to us earlier tonight. I know that each of these commitments are layered. They have many, many facets below them and branching out as a result. But we did hear about one aspect of student success tonight, and that was the notion of re-engagement with our students. And I just wondered if we could hear about what we do as a board already to re-engage students, acknowledging, as I'm believing, that this is already seen and practiced in one of the commitments that would be identified in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. Certainly, re-engagement is a part of much of what you see in front of you, learning engagement. The word is right there, and achievement, mental health and well-being. That's often an aspect of it. Human rights, equity, and inclusion, often an aspect of it. I could go on. However, as a school board, we are often looking to reach out to our students. We have within our schools many rooms and teachers and resources dedicated to engaging students who are not performing up to par, who have, for whatever reason, decided that they are just not fully engaged in school. And so we would have teachers within our schools who can reach out. And so I'm going to ask Superintendent Connor if she could just speak to some of the work that we're doing to engage our students already and that we will continue to do.
Yeah, thank you so much. So through the chair, through to Trustee Gray. I would say that notion of engagement and success for students is the domain of every single educator in the system. Our commitment within our secondary schools and within elementary are that all of our students will be successful, and we look at engaging students within the classroom, but also when we think of the breadth of supports that we have within our school, that are fulsome, as our director has referenced. The focus on student success teachers, guidance, special education, social workers. We think of our grad coaches. We think of the really robust, thoughtful programming that we have to be able to support, embrace, and engage all learners across all grades within the system are I would say, robust and profound. Beyond that, I would say that when we look at some of the regional supports that we have in place, having been a former principal of adult alternative and continuing education, that I would say is a rich and fulsome way in which we think about how we serve and support each and every one of our students. That notion of engagement and success is the expectation that every single student that we have in our system graduates with an Ontario secondary school diploma. And that commitment does not fail to extend beyond 18 years of age. Indeed, we have, as many of you may know, adults that graduate at 80 years of age. And so engagement is the role of all. It's the expectation of all and a commitment to all in each and every one of our students from the school level through to the regional breadth of programs that we offer as well.
And sorry, Chair, may I just add, I was at a school this morning, secondary school, and one of the classes that I visited was an automotive shop. And the teacher spoke to me about this very thing, Trustee Gray, about engaging a student. And he told me about a student who was not engaged in school, in fact, was not coming to school because he just, for whatever reason, was not engaging. And he encouraged the student to come back to school. He encouraged the student to become a tire specialist. I don't think I'm using the right words. But that student got so engaged in the automotive, he then got some work experience at one of the car dealerships in the Halton region. He's now working at a Porsche dealership, was sent to Germany to train, and is back doing great work. And he said, making as much money as himself, the teacher. That's the story I just heard today. So when you talk about engagement, we have, as Superintendent Connor say, engagement happening right across the system each and every day. And that's just one simple example.
I love that example. Trustee Gray, do you have a follow-up, or was that all you had to say on this?
No, I think I've heard that we have an actual program in place to attract those students who are early leavers from the school system, bringing them back in and engaging them in programs, whether it be in our schools or in our special centers like Gary Allen to accommodate their special needs and promote their success. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Chair. So when we did the multi-year plan 4 years ago, when it got to this stage where we had graphics and had it looking like that up on the wall, we went back to stakeholders. I remember being part of meetings where we shared this version with stakeholders, the PIC committee, council chairs, and whatnot, to get their feedback on the almost final product. Did we do that this year? And I get the impression we haven't. So one, did we do it? And if we didn't do it, why didn't we go back to get the input from stakeholders as far as what their thoughts were on the almost finished product?
Through the chair to Trustee Rocha, I believe the stakeholders from the very inception of this consultation on day one were told about the timelines of how we would be proceeding. That was shared with them, and we have followed that process, and we have been in alignment with everything we told our stakeholders we would do, and that has led us to this point.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Comment. So what I'm hearing you say, we didn't proactively go back to them and say, hey, thank you for your input at the beginning to create it. Here's our finished product. What are your thoughts? So that consultation did not happen. Thank you for confirming that.
Do you have any other questions?
I will let a next speaker go.
Trustee Amos.
Thank you, through you. I heard earlier about a concern around the human rights and equity, and I just wanted to state that when you Google the Ministry of Education and what they're all about, equity and human rights are a key focus of the Ministry of Education, and it's in almost all of their documents. So I feel that if we left it out, it would be significant. I really, it would be like saying that we don't care about it. I'm not sure if it's that blatant, but that's sort of the way my gut goes. I mean, when I go on the website, I see it on a whole bunch of their documentation, and it's part of what has to be in the curriculum, and it's part of what has to be a foundation and other pieces. I mean, one of their statements is, in an inclusive education system, students must see themselves reflected in the curriculum, their physical surroundings, and the broader environment so they feel engaged and empowered by their learning experiences. Students need to experience teaching and learning that reflects their needs and who they are. To ensure that this happens, educators in Ontario schools embrace culturally responsive and relative pedagogy, which recognizes that all students learn in ways that are connected to background, language, family structure, and social or cultural identity. And those are key parts of what our multi-year plan should be about and are about. So while I hear the concern, I think that it is a key element that needs to remain.
Thank you, Trustee Amos. Moving on to second-time speakers, Trustee Zhang.
Thank you. So I'd like everyone to read the two articles published on the National Post. The first one is the up to courts to push back on discriminatory DEI policies. The article reveals how DEI becomes discriminatory in policies such as employment. The other article just published last week, the name is Martin Luther King Jr.'s Dream Sacrificed on the altar of DEI. The article tells how JFK's affirmative action becomes DEI, and that alters the original meaning. The article says DEI has evolved from affirmative action-based intent, which aimed to ensure the same opportunities are available to all persons regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion, and to welcome and treat all persons with respect. DEI has instead become a form of discrimination against any person who cannot be identified as a victim of colonization, marginalization, or oppression. So based on above reasons, I suggest that we either provide a clear definition and the measurement of equity or remove the commitment from the MYSP. No matter this section is included or removed, it is still our responsibility to ensure human rights support in all our policies in a school operation. And Trustee Amos's question about the provincial the policies and the documents. So we have the school inclusion and equity strategy published in 2009. After that, there are PPM 119 was published. 119 has two versions. The first version in 2009, the second version published in 2013. And in the PPM 119, it has a section about the board's responsibility. So it covers several laws, the legal requirements the boards ever should do. The legal requirements covers the Constitution and the Ontario Human Rights Code. Also, it has the
Municipal Freedom and Information and the Protection of Privacy Act. That's about privacy. Ontarians with a Disability Act, and Accessibility of Ontarians with a Disability Act. So this about the disability and accessibility. Other provincial policies, including French language education and Indigenous education framework. So this about different group of people. But in our practice, in the past 2 years, I think we have focused too much on the gender and the race. So everything is gender, race, that then becomes our focus. So, and we forget a lot of legal requirements in the PPM 119. So that's the issue I want to say.
Thank you, Trustee Zhang.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Chair. So in this evening's delegation, our delegator made mention or commented on page 2, which is a circle with lots of circles. The center circle right now is blank. Is that intentionally left blank, or are we missing information in there? Should there
The center of the circle is 6 students. Each of the colors is a different student, and they have their arm around the student beside them. So student-centered.
Oh, okay. So completely missed that. I did not see that. I thought those were some funky arrows. Okay. Well, there's some feedback. Things are not clear. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And that finishes our speakers list. Somebody wants to speak, and that would be Vice Chair Oliver.
Okay, thank you. Earlier I spoke as a member of the steering committee. Now I want to speak as a trustee. This is a very exciting time. We have created a multi-year strategic plan for the next 4 years. This is my 3rd time as a trustee working on such a plan, and 2nd time that I served on the steering committee. And I have to say, I was never more invigorated and engaged myself than when working with my fellow trustees and the senior team on developing this plan. The summer sessions that we held were really rich and invigorating. We were challenged to dream big for our students, to envision a bright, wonderful, successful future for every student, regardless of their personal abilities, and set forth a plan that would help to attain those wonderful goals. Our 2 student trustees were equally engaged and involved in those sessions. We had a lot of great input and feedback, constructive feedback from them, all of which was incorporated. And I think this is a really rich and exciting plan. Each commitment is clearly outlined in the vision and the goal that it is meant to address. And we've got some clear objectives. And I think this sets forth a wonderful path for all of our students and our staff in how the system is going to function and deliver a really robust, amazing, engaging public education within Halton District School Board. And I'm very proud of this, and I'm very grateful to have been involved. And I thank all of our stakeholders, the parents, students, staff, community groups that were involved in working alongside of us in providing that initial feedback, in helping us build and develop this plan. Ultimately, this is something that we own. This is one of our most important responsibilities as trustees. We own this. We receive the input, and that helps to shape the report that we have. And I'm very, very proud of it. Thank you.
Trustee Bryden.
My mic doesn't like me. we've had a couple threads of conversation going on, and one is about process and one is about content. And on the process side, I've heard a bunch of things, that this has been a rich consultation process, and also that we did not, in ways that we have done in the past, circle back to stakeholders to check out the draft plan. And that's in a research process, we would usually do that. And so that's something that, when we look forward 4 years, the next time we do this, something we may want to build into the schedule. I don't think we're going to solve that with a 2-week window now. On the content side, I have opinions, but I actually want to shut my mouth, and I want to open an invitation that you are welcome to decline to the 2 student trustees at the table if either of them want to speak to the content of this report. As I said, you are welcome to decline this invitation.
Please go ahead. We really thank you for your invitation. I think Trustee Ochu and I would like to take maybe some more time to look through it and even engage our own, like our friends and our families and other students we know. We could even take it up with the Student Senate and report back and see what they think, because I believe we have also said enough kind of about what we believe our values are here. I'd really love to extend the invite for like other students to also give their opinions, but we would love maybe some more time to look at it clearly before just jumping straight into it.
Student Trustee Ochu, would you like to say anything? No? Trustee Bryden, did you have anything to follow up with?
No.
Thank you. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you through your chair, and I'm really sorry, Student Trustee Ochu, but my question is actually for you. So at the last meeting that we had, you brought up several key points that you wanted to look at in changing or adjusting the multi-year plan when we met. And I'm just wondering, so Vice Chair Oliver just spoke about how integral your roles were in the steering committee. So I'm wondering, when you went back to the steering committee after our last meeting and you brought up some really key points that I thought were really valid, how were those discussed and integrated into the plan? And sorry, because I knew you didn't want to talk.
Could you please provide me with a refresher of those points, please? Thank you.
One was the mental health and well-being. You wanted that to be included. It was included. The addition of mental health and well-being.
Yes, thank you. The reason why I brought up keeping the name as mental health and well-being is because within our schools, within our student senate, the idea of mental health and well-being being sort of 2 and 2, hand in hand together, has been prominent across, I don't know, ever since I've been in secondary school, and even programs within our schools like mental health spaces or mental health and well-being clubs would be a little bit confused if they were to take a look at the new multi-year plan and see that mental health and well-being is missing from it, because they might get the idea that the board thinks that they've done enough relating to mental health, which unfortunately is not true. We're actually looking right now at the applications to Student Senate, and we're seeing a lot of applications to the Mental Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee, and the stories that we're getting from that have been truly troubling. The stuff that students are going through at school, suffering in silence, is something that I take very seriously, and just seeing the idea of mental health and well-being being phased out from the new multi-year plan is something I don't think I can allow. No, how it was going to be phased out before. I'm very much glad that it is included.
respond to your question adequately?
It does, but I also do want to quickly follow up. I know my time has been going since student trustees have been speaking, so hopefully I have enough time to speak to again. So I listened to both our student trustees when they fed back, and one of the things that they said that they wanted was a little bit more time. They wanted to take time to take this back to the Senate to talk to them about what they felt. Again, I'm coming back to the original discussion we had at the beginning of the meeting about that 2-week delay for that time to maybe have those conversations with our student senate. Just again, 2 weeks to me in a 4-year multi-year plan is a very small amount of time. And I think we are doing an injustice by not doing that. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion to defer?
Yes, I would.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Rocha? Okay, I'm going to clear the speakers list. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to deferral? Trustee Daniele?
Thank you, and I'm not really sure who to throw this out to, so I'm just going to throw it out. Before I can vote on this, I'd like to know what is going to happen in the next 2 weeks. What is the purpose of the deferral? What are we going to be able to achieve? I don't know if you have any meetings coming up, or that, within 2 weeks, if you would be able to take it back and speak to that, or to my fellow trustees who are looking for the deferral, please help me understand what the plan for the 2 weeks is.
Okay, I'm not going to have an open mic for this, so I'm going to have to go back to the asker, which is Trustee Shuttleworth, to respond to that.
So I can't respond to the question of the student trustees, but that was where my motion was centered on, was the idea that they wanted time. They wanted time as well, and I think that for me, if we're listening to students who are saying we just want a little bit of time to digest and understand, that's what our board's about. We're student centered. We've got the students, which Tanya thought was fancy check marks, hugging hands and being in the center. So I just really think if our student trustees have a way of re-engaging the students within the next 2 weeks, I think we should afford them that time.
And that is one of the prongs of my question, was to the student trustees. Are there meetings in the next 2 weeks? Because I'm not aware of the schedule.
Go ahead.
Yes, I can answer that. We actually do have a meeting coming up on November 13th, Wednesday. I definitely think that's something we could bring to the Student Senate. Yeah.
Director Ennis.
Thank you for the question. We engaged over 450 students in the consultation. We had a schedule that was that has been in place for months, and I find it concerning that tonight there's been several attempts to stop this process through various means, and this is something that's been going on for 7 months with a clear and transparent outline of what we were hoping to achieve at each date. We did that and then some. Everything the student trustees suggested to us, we included. Everything. And so I see the next step of this is for the student trustees to take it and engage the Senate and the rest of the students about how we operationalize the multi-year plan, not to further disseminate what's in the plan that the student trustees have contributed to at every stage. I want to thank Trustee Ochoa and Trustee Ho for their work since the summer and before to engage in this process, and we've reflected all of their voices in this. And so I trust that they would take this back to the Senate once it is approved to talk about how we engage in the work.
Okay, I'm just going to remind everyone we're speaking to deferral. So I have a speakers list, and I go to Donna Daniele. Trustee Daniele.
Trustee Daniele spoke already.
I know, but you're still on the list. Okay, I'll go to the next speaker. Carol Baxter. Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would just like to start by thanking those trustees who were here for the last multi-year plan and those who have engaged in this type of consultation work before to share with us their experiences and knowledge of best practices in terms of putting out the final product to those who were consulted. it sounds like the right thing to do, and I would be in favor of allowing enough time to just confirm, because I think, as Trustee Shuttleworth pointed out, this is a long-term plan. The current one is not expiring in any way. The current one is obviously great. This new one is exciting, and I look forward to its implementation. But I think it would be good governance and good public engagement and help to foster that confidence that we're always looking to maintain and improve with the public. And I also, I have to admit, did not realize that those were students holding hands in the center. I really like it now that I see it, so thank you. A multi-year plan with students in the center is perfect in my mind. But I think, let's not just be a symbol. If we have an opportunity to take it to students, and it sounds like we do through our student trustees, thank you, I would really appreciate having that opportunity and come back either at the next board meeting or the one after. I think the next one, it sounds like, would work later in November, and vote on it then. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I just want to say it's not, I have a really difficult time with the way sometimes things are viewed. So I don't think that any trustee at this table is trying to stop the process. We are just trying to be mindful of the voices that we as trustees are responsible to. We are responsible to our students. Our students, as everybody says, and in this picture, are at the center of our plan. I struggle with the concern of 2 weeks. 2 weeks to give voice to the students, just even for them to feel validated in saying, we are listening to you, to me is extremely important. And in no way am I saying I want to stop this process. Thank you.
Can I just say something? The student trustees were actually the very first group that was consulted in this process. So talk about importance. The very first group that we went to speak to were the senators. And so that talks about the importance of the work that was done. So I feel like we're at the end of the game and we're trying to start over again. That's the very first thing we did.
Okay, I'm ready.
If I can quickly follow, I still have time.
Okay, go ahead.
So again, as we spoke to at the beginning of this process, and as Trustee Bryden spoke to the idea of circling back, and knowing that we can't necessarily do that in a fulsome approach in this multi-year plan, when our student trustees have said that might be something that might be helpful, again, for me, it's also that symbolic notion that we are returning to who we began with. Director Ennis, thank you very much.
Trustee Amos.
Sorry, I thought someone was before me. I have a little bit of concern about delaying even for 2 weeks, because depending on what the feedback is, if people feel that it is something that makes things should be changed or needs to be rewritten, that makes the delay even longer than 2 weeks. And I'm not saying that would happen, but by delaying 2 weeks, you can't just limit it to the students. The community will also be allowed to have input in that 2 weeks too, right? So, and the other piece of it is our multi-year plan does run out. We would have to make a motion to, it's because of the operational plan. The operational plan is tied to the multi-year plan. The operational plan would have to be voted on to continue past the date it's on now, because the operational plan is only good until this year. So it would have to be voted on so that the staff could continue in the current operational plan with the current multi-year plan before, because it doesn't just continue. It was a finite finish. So, and it also delays staff, allowing them to create the new operational plan, because they're in a delay part two. And we need that new operational plan to happen as soon as possible, because it does affect rolling out the multi-year plan. So there are all kinds of ramifications for delaying. And and I do feel that everybody who should have had a say has had a say, and but it's the will of the board. I'm just saying that there are ramifications to delaying.
And moving on to Trustee Zhang.
Thank you. So in this sixth commitment, we have one commitment about the engagement.
Trustee Zhang, we're speaking to the deferment.
Yes, yes. So this is we need to defer because we already have this engagement. So after this version 5 is published, I'm not sure how many responses we received from the community. If we didn't receive any community, this is very important, the guiding document for the next 4 years. So we don't have enough community involvement and engagement. Then that could be an issue. So I would recommend that we have a communication to the community and have like the parents, students to involve to give us feedback. So this is like the commitment we made in this document. So that's very important. We need to listen to have feedback from the community and to listen to them. That's most important because they trust us. They have students in our schools. So that's why I would suggest we don't need to rush it. If we make the guiding document for the next 4 years, we need to make the correct. So I said I will agree to defer. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Vice Chair Oliver.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So first of all, we're working on the assertion that a full feedback was done in the last term with respect to the multi-year plan, in that a draft was actually shared with stakeholders and some other kind of feedback loop occurred, and that shaped the final version of the plan. I personally don't recall that. I can see entering an endless feedback loop with everybody wanting to provide feedback and finding something wrong with practically every word in the plan. Ultimately, we trustees own this plan. We've gone above and beyond in the consultation that we did. We've done an unprecedented number of consultations with every level of stakeholder in our community. And all of that feedback was taken very seriously and consolidated to help develop the objectives and shape the commitments. So I believe we've done what we set out to do, and we are now in a place where we own this and we're ready to move forward. Secondly, I do want to get clarification around student engagement. I have to say, I feel like they were possibly put on the spot to ask and reflect. So I do want to clarify whether you were thinking about making substantial changes or more of taking this to the Senate, sharing it, and helping the Senate operationalize. I know you're working with selecting your subcommittees that would reflect the commitments. So I'm just wondering, are you thinking more of Senate feedback around what do we do with this now and how do we engage students? Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, through the chair. First, I just wanted to clarify when Trustee Brennan asked me. I think I was talking more from like a personal stance, just because I saw that many trustees had things prepared, and I usually like to look at things and really digest it before I speak on an issue in public. So I thought potentially it would be better for Trustee Ochunak to take a further look at this new edition if we were to be getting quoted in this discussion. So I do apologize for the miscommunication. Honestly, I'm really grateful for the opportunity opportunity to have so much input, I did look at the broad commitments that were seen, and I do see, like, word for word, one of the commitments that I recommended inside the multi-year plan, which is something that I am really proud of and really happy about. And I also want to point out that, yes, I do believe perhaps like the different versions are getting rolled out quite quickly, so perhaps we don't have that type of feedback at like every single level or every single version. But I also believe it might be beneficial to dwell less on like, again, the specific wording and focus more on how students might see the multi-year plan, which is seeing them as like general guidelines and broader commitments where people can resonate with. Like, for example, as Trustee Ochu was saying, they would resonate with the idea of mental health or resonating with the idea of learning and achievement, and leaving that room up for interpretation. So perhaps having it the way it is currently, and then again, as Director Ennis said, taking it to the Senate, maybe talking about how we could implement it, how we could see different projects for subcommittees and integrate those, it might be better. So I wouldn't really say that we would like to have the deferral.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Student Trustee Ho. That really clears things up for me, because that's how I heard what you said the first time. But then I was like, oh, did I hear it right? Okay, thank you very much for that. And we will now go to Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Chair. Trustee Amos mentioned that the existing operational plan expires. What month does the plan expire?
The operational plan is not within our purview. It's operational in nature, and it expires when the director says it expires.
Okay, that's what I thought. So Trustee Amos's comments threw me off with an expiry date. Okay, so thank you. There is no expiry date as of yet. The other point, just wanted to clarify. Trustee Oliver mentioned we're going on the assumption that the last MYP we did go back for consultation. We did. Those consultations took place October 8th and October 9th. So the month of October there were consultations on the final product. There were meetings. So we did go back, and I've got my notes to confirm that. So I am in favor of deferring this, at least to the point that, one, it acknowledges that we are following our bylaws with a 2-week process. And second, I think we're doing a huge disservice to the public by not letting them know that here's our product, let us know what you think. So at least this buys us 2 weeks to somehow communicate to the public, to the people we originally consulted, that here's what you gave us, this is how we interpreted, what do you think? And go from there. So I am in favor of deferring.
Trustee Ho, you are still on the speakers list. Did you want to remove yourself? Thank you. So I'm just going to say a few words of my own about the process that went on in the year 2020, because it was 2020 and we were in the middle of a pandemic. And we almost had our multi-year plan complete in the spring and got thrown a huge whammy in the middle of March when everything shut down and work on the multi-year plan, of course, stopped. When we regrouped in the fall, I believe we went back to the public because the multi-year plan changed in those intervening months to be more focused on some of the things that we were living through. And that's when mental health became a huge concern. And we focused on that more. And I remember when we came back and sunk our teeth back into the multi-year plan, our heads were all still in the pandemic because it was still very much a part of our reality. And I do believe that's why we went back. That doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it in the future. But in the other 4 multi-year plans that I've been a part of, that did not happen. I also would like to say that I don't think a lot could be accomplished in a 2-week deferral, and for that reason, I will not be supporting the deferral. Is the motion in Creston? Okay. Just going to find the motion, and then I will open it up for voting. Oh, there we go. Please cast your votes. Oh. No. I voted the wrong way.
It's to defer.
If you're voting to defer, you're voting yes. If you're voting not to defer, you're voting no. So please make sure you have voted correctly. If you don't feel comfortable about your vote,
Yes.
we'll see it in a minute. Okay. Is there anyone that's uncomfortable with their vote?
I wanted to vote to not defer.
Can you say that in the microphone, please?
I meant to vote no to deferral.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Do you want to do it again?
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So if you do not wish to defer, we're going to do this by, I don't know if it's going to let me do it twice. Okay, it is going to let me do it twice. If you do wish to defer, you vote yes. If you do not wish to defer, you vote no. Second time's the charm, I hope. Okay. So that motion does not pass, and it's not a unanimous vote. In favor was Trustee Zhang, Trustee Shuttleworth, Trustee Baxter, and Trustee Rocha. All remaining trustees voted against, and Student Trustee Ho did not vote, which is fine. Oh, you're logged out? Would you like to cast a verbal vote? And Trustee Ho votes no. So our minutes will reflect that. Okay. If you both need to leave now, that's fine. We appreciate you being here, and we know that you have schoolwork to do. We are back to the main motion. And if the people that were on the list, I believe there were 2 people on the list. One of them was Trustee Amos, and I can't remember who the second one was. If they want to go back on the speakers list, we can go back to that. Trustee Amos.
I just wanted to say I'm very proud of what this multi-year plan has put forth, and I think that we are going to be a leader in the province by, for example, our situation with kindness. And I mean, today, for example, we just passed a motion which reflects strict right on to kindness. Our motion to find out how some students are feeling about situations in the classroom and in their schools. So I do believe that this is just the start, and that we will be an example for the rest of the province of what can and should be doing. And I just wanted to say that I'm very proud of what we have put together as a board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the main motion? Seeing none, I will put the motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. Trustee Gray has left the room. I didn't realize she left. My apologies to Trustee Gray. I did not realize you had left the room. We are voting on the main motion of approving the plan or not. Thank you. And that passes, but not unanimously. Voting against are Trustees Zhang and Trustee Rocha. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are up to section 5.0, communication to the board. And we do have a couple of items for information. 5.1.1, Inspire Award Annual Report for 2023-2024, Report 24133, submitted by Trustees Gray and Shuttleworth. Trustees Gray and Shuttleworth, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, I'm just going to give Trustee Gray a couple moments to pull up her notes.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, the Inspire Award Annual Report was circulated with the package late last week. The purpose of the report was to provide an overview of this past year. And as many of you will recall, because you sat on the committee, a lot of work came to fruition through this past year in the sense of doing an overall review of the Inspire Award, making some improvements and streamlining the work as we went through looking at each aspect of the award, both the work that the trustees are required to do and the work that the director's office is required to do. As a result, and you will see in the report, key among the many changes was the criteria that was revamped, the streamlining of the work in the nomination and evaluation process, and most, I think, importantly and probably most impactful was the promotion of the Inspire Award through the creation of a video by the student trustees and also through a major social media campaign. That major social media campaign was so successful in the spring that we found ourselves almost overrun by nominations and therefore creating a little bit of a blip in terms of our ability to deliver both here within the boardroom, but also individually at those schools where recipients requested their award to be presented. You can see I concluded the report by, and I thought this was important to the report, and that was that the award winners included students, teachers, social workers, EAs, ECEs, community volunteers, managers, admin assistants, library technicians, members of school council, and so on and so forth. I want to emphasize through that collection of different categories that this award has really reached out and inspired so many individuals to nominate those folks who in fact have been exemplary in their field and have inspired others that have had a lasting effect. Near the end of last spring, we actually considered through a few discussions around the table that this success of this award seemed to require perhaps us looking at a different way of delivering the award. And there was a notion spoken to about perhaps having an Inspire Award evening and making presentations partway through the year, maybe once or twice a year. And that was really in response to the number of nominations that we were seeing coming in. I can say that this fall, it's really returned to really what we had before, and that was anywhere from 5 to 10 nominations coming in, something much more manageable than the 35 to 45 nominations that we were seeing in the springtime. At this time, I want to thank all of those trustees who have had a chance to participate both in the committee, but also in the evaluation of the nominated individuals. It's work that's ongoing. It continues every month, and I know that many of you have been so kind to respond to the email that we put out together to ask for evaluations to be done, usually on a very short time frame. So we thank you for that. But that's all I would have to say. You've got the report before you, and we are happy to take any questions that you may have about this report. Thank you.
I'm seeing no questions. It was a very well-written report and well delivered at the table, so thank you very much, both of you, for putting that together. And we look forward to handing out many more Inspire Awards this year. The next item on our agenda is 5.1.2, 2023-2024 Human Rights and Equity Report. Report 24134, submitted by Director Ennis. Director Ennis, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you so much, Chair Shuttleworth. Trustees, the report is before you. Thank you very much, Chair Collard. The report is before you. I do at least once every meeting.
It wouldn't be fun if you didn't.
No, sorry. I said the report is before you. Happy to take any questions.
Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Ennis. Thank you for this update on the operational initiatives of the department and the work that's been done under each of the directives. So just looking through our governance lens, I'm just wondering when and where we will see the specific goals, outcome measures, and updates on those outcomes for this area of the MYP.
I'm going to ask Superintendent Petko to speak to that.
Thank you, Director Ennis. Through you, Chair Collard, to Trustee Baxter. May I ask, I'm going to ask a question, a clarifying question, if you don't mind. But before I ask the question, I'm going to also just reiterate that the report before you is a review of the 10 directives that doesn't involve just the Equity, Human Rights, and Inclusive Education Department. It involves multiple departments, and there's a cross-intersectionality of work that we do. And you can see that it's around policies, but it's also around, it involves the work of the Safe Schools Department. It also involves the work of the HR department, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Department as well. So it's a collaborative effort. So what I'm asking Chair Baxter is, or not Chair Baxter. Look I'm making all the mistakes as well now. Apologies. What I'm asking is, what exactly are you looking for? Because you're asking about the Equity Department and the measures that we are going to use to monitor. Monitor what specifically, may I ask?
Yeah, through Chair Collard. In the report, if I've understood correctly, so we have our Equity Inclusive Education Policy, and it dictates that there should be an annual Human Rights and Equity report that informs the ministry and the community, and trustees, the community through trustees, I guess, about the progress that the board has made in meeting its strategic goals. And so I was just wondering, is there another report coming, that like an annual report that has the strategic goals, the measures that are being used to assess those progress on those goals, and when this seems a little bit operational in terms of all of the resources and efforts that are being made in this area, which I appreciate, and I have a couple of questions about that, but just sort of off the top from the governance perspective, is there another report coming that would have goals, measures, and then progress toward those measures?
So I think, in short, that would be the multi-year plan exercise that would fulfill that.
You said you had some more questions? You still have a minute, so.
Oh, okay, if there's no one else on the list. So I just had some questions about specific items that are in there. mostly it was just the governance question that I had is overall, but specifically, in the professional learning table, there's a list of organizations like Facing History and Ourselves that provide free public access to their anti-Semitism definition and the resources that I assume they are basing their training on. In contrast, the anti-Palestinian racism training that's listed in the table is provided by Unlearn, and that organization does not provide the same kind of access to their materials. And so in response to public questions, some trustees have asked for information on the definition and framework that staff are using for APR. So I'm just wondering if there's a board resource available now, or if the Unlearn resources are being used, could they then be made available publicly, the ones that are being used to guide staff in the same way that we have public access to the other materials. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Baxter. Through you, Chair Collard. I'm happy to take your question and be able to bring back to you a more fulsome response at a later time, if that's okay with you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Collard. I'm not sure if this would be to the director or to Superintendent Petco, but I know when we look at the inclusive education system and the focus of this, it's focusing specifically on race, gender identity, and I'm wondering how we as a board are looking at the overlap in terms of special education as well. Is Superintendent Ruddock you talked about collaboration and overlap. I'm just wondering how we also are including our students with exceptionalities maybe in this program or this policy.
I'm going to ask Superintendent Petco and Ruddock to respond.
Thank you for that question. Trustee Shuttleworth, through you, Chair Collard. I'm getting that right. I'm not being facetious. I want to say thank you so much, Trustee Shuttleworth, for bringing that up, because I think oftentimes our students with special education needs is not at the forefront when we think of human rights, equity, inclusive education. So that I'm taking it, that's why you brought it up, and I'm so happy you did. It is an assumption from our department that students with special education needs is included when we speak of equitable outcomes for students. And hence, and we've said here that the organizations, that it's not an exhaustive list. They're just highlights of some. And we certainly value collaboration with our special education department, and Superintendent Ruddock and I, we collaborate often and have many discussions around what this means when we talk about equitable outcomes for students. And of course, understanding that there's deep intersectionality of identities of our students that cross race lines, that cross ability lines, that cross, ethnic background, religious creed identities, socioeconomic status as well. And so definitely lots of collaboration. But if I may, I'd like to turn it over now to Superintendent Ruddock to speak to some of the details perhaps around that.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Trustee Shuttleworth. I would agree with Superintendent Petco that we have a very strong collaboration between our two departments with a core focus on equity and inclusion. We really reflect the work of supporting students with special education needs and their outcomes through our special education plan. And that is, as you know, a very accountable process. We have SEAC that provides input and direction, and it comes to trustees for final approval. And much of what was established in the Human Rights and Equity Department was modeled after those processes that are in special education. So the way forward in this report is really to document the work that's supporting the identity work that the Human Rights, Equity, and Inclusion Department is working on, and then we use the Special Education Plan and SEAC to really communicate our commitment and our work to support students with special education needs.
Does that give you what you were looking for, Trustee Shuttleworth?
Mostly, thank you. Again, through you, Chair. I'm wondering, I know Superintendent Petco, you spoke about those assumptions that are made. I think that sometimes it might be nice to have that assumption underwritten by addressing the diverse populations that are out there. So there is no mention in here of students with exceptionalities, and I'm wondering if maybe it could be added. Thank you.
Thank you. And second time speaker, Trustee Baxter.
Thank you, through the chair. So I have another question that I've received that I'm bringing to the table. The term anti-colonial is one that I've received questions about, but I haven't found any public board or ministry resources that support understanding of the meaning. Usually when anti is followed by a hyphen, the next word is something like racism or oppression, which are things that we want to eliminate because they have no positive or redeeming qualities. For that reason, anti-Semitism is not hyphenated because it refers to the hatred of Jews, not the large number of people who speak Semitic languages. That's an aside. So colonial can be used to describe Canada and sometimes is, which I don't think we're looking to eliminate. So there is a need for a clarification of the term as we use it at the HDSB, and I was wondering if there is a public resource available, and if not, could there be one that I could refer people to? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Baxter. As per my other response, I will absolutely note that question and get back to you on that too. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers on this item, I would like to thank the Director and Superintendents Petco and Ruddick for their responses. And we will now move on to the Director's report.
Thank you so much, Chair Collard. This evening's Director's report, I believe was shared with you earlier. We start with profound sadness as we share the passing of one of our beloved staff, Aisha Mirza, educational assistant at J.M. Denny's Public School. Aisha will be fondly remembered by the entire J.M. Denny's Public School family. Our thoughts are with Aisha's family and friends and the entire school community. And with that, I will just ask for a moment of silence on the passing of Aisha. Thank you. May her memory be a blessing to all those with whom she has made contact. Just an exciting program that was introduced this year to HDSB students called the Entrepreneur Within. That conference was held at Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center in Oakville on October the 24th. We had students from almost every high school at the conference interacting with dozens of entrepreneurs and those who have created companies and incubated technology companies and other types of companies that the students were just enthralled. I was there for most of the day, and I can tell you that the interaction between the students and the entrepreneurs was a highlight. Many of the students in the exit survey said they absolutely were thrilled at this conference and wanted more of it, and so they're asking for us to continue this. So this is something that I will be looking to establish permanently within the board. It was an exciting day. The Directors Panel Series, of course, took place October the 21st. I was there along with Human Rights and Equity Advisor Pardeep Nagra, along with our guest speaker, Jillian Tucker-Turner, that we all know, speaking about human rights schools in the Canadian Charter. For those of you who were not able to see it, I encourage you to watch it online. The HDSB Communications and Engagement Department received 3 awards, of which we are so proud. We were one of only, I think, 4 boards across the country that were named and called out for exceptional work. You saw the awards that we won, Calling All 3-Year-Old campaigns. The Award for Excellence in Communications Project is the highest recognition for education public relations programs in Canada. This award is highly competitive, and so we stood out once again. I believe one of the comments that our team received was, "Why does the HSB always win?" So we are extremely proud of our team. To Heather and your entire team, thank you for representing us so well and for doing a great job. We hope that you're going to do the very same thing with the new multi-year plan. That should win an award next year as well. We're holding you to that. All right. Congratulations to you. And something that's not on the document that you received, but just wanted to share because I was so impressed. I went to a school today, as I said earlier, and whenever I go to schools, I always hear all these wonderful things that are happening. And so, I encourage all of you to continue to visit schools and to be out there because so many great things are happening in our schools every day. Trustee Gray mentioned that earlier in one of her comments about visiting almost all of her schools. I was at WAS this morning, and one of the things that I learned as I was there was that the students there in the culinary arts program are actually creating meals to feed those who are unhoused. And so we have, to date, since September, I believe the teacher told me, we have handed out over 1,000 meals to those in the Halton region, to those who are in need. And so I just want to commend the team at WAS, the teacher, the principal, the entire school community for really using their skills and ability to support community. So that was something I was very moved by and touched by and thought that's something I wanted to share with you this evening as well. So congratulations to the WAS team on an outstanding job in supporting community. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Director Ennis, on behalf of all of us here present, I would like to thank you very much for sharing that. What a wonderful moment for those students to be in our schools learning about the capacity to give and to recognize the need of others. That's a beautiful thing, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. We will now move on to communications from the chair, and I have just a little bit to say about all of the work we've done this past year. During the last 12 months, our board has been extremely busy. At the board table, we approved several amendments to our policies and governance procedures and adopted a new cybersecurity and data protection policy. We embarked on a trial period of having one regular board meeting per month, made changes to our agendas to ensure they focus on student achievement and well-being, and created monitoring reports to track our progress with the multi-year plan. We completed boundary reviews and named a new school. We passed a motion to begin the process to rename a school, and after hearing from the affected community, we discovered that changing the name might actually cause harm, so we rescinded that motion. We approved this year's school calendar and amended last year's. We created a new standing committee to ensure our financial advocacy to the ministry and within our communities would be a priority. We supported our student trustees as they brought forward amendments to their policy and governance procedure and subsequently brought motions regarding greenhouse gas reduction funding and menstrual equity. We wrote letters to the ministry regarding their recent changes to legislation and advocating for targeted funding to ensure an equitable and sustainable future for our students. We have been engaged in professional development opportunities raising from the Ontario Public School Boards Association's Public Education Symposium and Labour Relations Symposium, and the Canadian School Board Association National Trustee Gathering on Indigenous Education and Congress, to locally provided learning opportunities, including anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, human rights, conflict resolution, and governance. We bestowed over 150 Inspire Awards to members of our community who have gone above and beyond in support of our students. We celebrated and supported the Halton Learning Foundation, raised the rainbow flag for Pride Month, and recognized the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Mid-year, we pivoted when the province changed how we are to conduct directors' performance appraisals and worked into the summer months to ensure it was completed efficiently and effectively. And tonight, we passed our new multi-year strategic plan for 2024 to 2028 after 7 months of consultations and meetings with students, staff, families, and the broader community, and 5 iterations of the plan were reviewed by the Board of Trustees. These are just the highlights. We have accomplished a lot. I am very proud of the work we've done collaboratively and in good faith. I am humbled when we take a misstep and heartened when we learn from it. I am very grateful for the people who sit around this table in both the outer and inner rows of seating. No one leads alone, and that is particularly true in the role of the chair. Thank you for listening. Now we move on to 5.4, committee updates. Do we have any committee updates this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to 5.5, OPSPA update. Trustees Gray and Daniele.
I have nothing to report tonight.
I would just like to mention that if anyone is interested in attending the Public Education Symposium, the registration isn't out yet, but the hotel reservations are available if anyone wanted to act on it quickly.
Thank you for that. We will now move on to 5.6, trustee questions of clarification. Are there any questions of clarification for this evening? Trustee Amos. Oh, you didn't mean to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you remove yourself?
No, I did want to request to speak, and I pressed the wrong button. So
Okay, so you're now the speaker.
Thank you. Earlier this evening, one of my fellow trustees mentioned, made a suggestion about investigating how all students in different groups feel, as opposed to just one group of students. And I fully support that because I think we need to focus on all students. And while we are moving forward and looking forward with the motion that passed tonight, I would like to make sure that we are focusing and getting feedback on all students, because I think that's just as important. So I don't know if a motion is needed for that, or but I do think that is something that we should move forward with.
Let's pose a question to the director and see if there is a plan in place to perhaps be doing something of this nature in the near future.
I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted. And
Don't do that. Don't do that. No, don't do that.
the results are not in yet.
Yes, that's good. The question from Trustee Amos was regarding having something similar to what we are doing regarding anti-Semitism for all of the groups that are affected by hate. And I know that this is near and dear to your own heart, so I was asking if you have are going to be putting a plan into place to do something like that.
If the Board of Trustees deem it necessary, I would ask for a motion, and so that we could conduct the work similar to what was done earlier today.
Yes, go ahead.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate for the trustee to bring a report such as the one we had tonight that includes all the background and a motion, rather than just have a motion at this point?
Absolutely. Yes, yes. A motion from the floor on this at this point would probably not be good. No, I didn't think you were going to.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Trustee Zhang.
Thank you. Is this the right time to speak about the trustee news?
Not yet. This isn't trustee news. This is questions of clarification. I believe you had something that you wanted to ask earlier, and I told you to wait until the end.
Oh, I have a news, not a question.
Okay, then put your yep, undo this one, and it looks like we have no one left on questions of clarification, and we will move into trustee news. Trustee Zhang.
Thank you. I received a message from a community member, so I want to speak about a competition. This is a competition information. We have a very active community member who contribute a lot about students' technology and like computer programming programs. He told me that there's an annual competition organized by Samsung. It's called Solve for Tomorrow STEM Challenge. So if anyone like to do some technology and do the competition, and can search the website for the competition news. This competition is in Ontario for students grade 6 to 12. The challenge uses STEM learning to solve real-world problems. The deadline for submission is December 20th. If anyone cannot find the website, and can send me an email, so I will forward you the link. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Trustee Zhang.
No, Trustee Zhang, can you send me the information, and I will pass it on.
Okay, I will forward you the link.
Thank you for that. Trustee Bryden.
Every time. There we go. See if that's any better. I wanted to announce something that we all know, but that we haven't quite greeted with the fervor it deserves quite yet, which is that we have a new multi-year strategic plan. And I am excited for what the next 4 years bring with that in place. So thank you all, and I just wanted to convey that.
Thanks very much for that, Trustee Bryden. And Jean Gray, Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. At this time of the year, as we come to the conclusion of the fall season, many sports extracurriculars in our system are coming to a close. I'm thinking of, for example, girls basketball, boys volleyball, cross-country running, golf, and one other sport, and that's football. And it came to my attention today, we can be very, very proud that we have representation at McMaster University tomorrow by both a junior and a senior boys football team, both of them from Georgetown. So kudos to them, and shout out. But in all seriousness, really what I wanted to do was thank all of those coaches and assistant coaches and volunteers in our community that every day come out and support early in the morning, late at night, but support the extracurricular programs, both in athletics but also in clubs that appear in our schools. Their involvement and their commitment to this extracurricular program is so hugely important to so many of our students. And so I wanted just to give a shout out and a thanks to all of those individuals involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving on to Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. Just two things of appreciation. For anyone who may not be aware, there was a public information meeting, and I know I speak for Trustee Matt and myself. We were both in attendance at that, and I know you would probably echo me in just thanking Fred and his team for putting together a public information meeting. This boundary review has not been without its challenges in Milton, and I just wanted to say that I've been so incredibly impressed with how that it's been going, and particularly that public information meeting. At one point, I believe you had 45 or 50 parents watching online and many submitting questions, and that's a new way of doing it. That for me is doing it, that public information, and I just wanted to say that I thought it worked exceptionally well, and I was really, really impressed. So I just wanted to comment on that. And the other one is just a very, very personal one. As you know, this is my first time back in this boardroom in many, many months. And I just wanted to say thank you to so many of you. The greeting that I got tonight when I came in was absolutely amazing. And the support, the emails, the meals, the calls, the everything that has been sent my way from each and every one of you has been absolutely incredible and overwhelming. And I really wanted to take a moment to thank you all so much. You made a very difficult time so much easier, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments, Trustee Daniele. And now we move on to our heading into private session. And Trustee Bryden, would you like to make a motion to go into committee of the whole private session respecting property matters? This meeting is not open to the public pursuant to Education Act 2072.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Trustee Zhang, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Are there any objections to moving into private session? Seeing none, the motion is passed by unanimous consent, and we are now in private session. Vice Chair Oliver, the floor is yours.
Good evening. We are now in private session. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Kevin is in the room. Okay. Welcome back to public session. We are now up to item 6.2, approval of business transacted in committee of the whole private session. Vice Chair Oliver, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
We have two items, agenda items to ratify. So from private agenda item 3.1, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolution from the HDSB Committee of the whole private session, November 5, 2024, and accept the 2023-24 Audit Committee Annual Report. Private session agenda item 3.1, and I so move.
Thank you. Trustee Daniele, would you second this motion?
Thank you, yes I would.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, please cast your votes. I just have to get it up on the screen. There we go. That passed unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, and for agenda item 3.2, there are 4 parts. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolution from the HDSB Committee of the whole private session, November 5th, 2024, respecting property matters. Private session agenda item 3.2, part 1, and I so move.
Trustee Amos, would you second this motion?
Yes, please.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolution from the Halton District School Board Committee of the whole private session, November 5th, 2024, respecting property matters, part 2, and I so move.
Thank you. Trustee Baxter, would you second this motion?
Yes, please.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Waiting on 2 people. Waiting on 1. Thank you. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolution from the Halton District School Board Committee of the whole private session, November 5th, 2024, respecting property matters, part 3. And I so move.
Thank you. Trustee Gray, would you second this motion?
Yes, I would.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you.
And be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolution from the Halton District School Board Committee of the whole private session, November 5th, 2024, respecting property matters, private session agenda item 3.2, part 4, and I so move.
Thank you. Trustee Gray, would you second this motion?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Is there any debate? Seeing none, please cast your votes.
And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that passes unanimously. We have reached the end of 6.2. Our next item is adjournment. As our agenda is exhausted, I call this